fighting domestic extremism and mass violence, no matter the motivation. We'll talk about it all with Representative Alyssa Slotkin. And from COVID vaccinations to marijuana licenses, Detroit City Council members on how they'll ensure everyone has access. Today is Sunday, March 28th, 2021. This is Flashpoint. Hello and welcome to Flashpoint. I'm Karen Drew. Devin is off this week. The seasons change pretty quickly. Suddenly there are buds on the trees, and the Tigers' opening day is this Thursday. It's nice that the season begins in April this year instead of last year's July start. And speaking of change, next door to Comerica Park, Ford Field transforms into a mass vaccination site. At the same time, the number of cases of COVID begins to surge. What needs to change in the messaging to get even more people vaccinated? Domestic terrorism. We saw the siege at the nation's capital as well as in our very own state. What changes in the law are needed to stop these attacks and at the same time ensure free speech and privacy rights are not sacrificed? Congresswoman Alyssa Slotkin is using her background as a CIA analyst to find answers, and we'll talk to her this morning. And money and marijuana businesses will change the economic outlook for many Detroiters. The money comes thanks to federal COVID relief and from billionaire Dan Gilbert, who's starting with an initiative to help pay unpaid property taxes. Legacy Detroiters are also being prioritized in the marijuana licensing process underway right now. And that is a big change from who's been operating medical marijuana dispensaries. We've got a group of Detroit City Council members to go through it all. So let's get started this morning on Flashpoint. The FBI director has called domestic terrorism one of the greatest threats to our country. And from what happened at the Capitol on January 6th to the plot against Governor Whitmer, incidents of extremism and violence are growing. The new chairwoman of the Intelligence and Counterterrorism Subcommittee happens to be the Democratic representative from Michigan's 8th District, and she held her first hearing this past week. Joining me now to talk about that and more is Representative Alyssa Slotkin. Good morning, Representative. We appreciate you taking the time for us today.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
And I want to just jump into that hearing. I mean, clearly, with what happened at the nation's capital and here in Lansing, something needs to be done to truly strengthen the fight against domestic terrorism. But where do we start?
Yeah, well, a couple of things. First, we got to separate out, the people who are the hardcore terrorists who want to use and incite violence from maybe the people who are bandwagoning, who are watching from the sidelines, who are posting on social media, but not threatening and inciting and using violence, right? We want to focus on this hardcore group, like the folks we saw who helped organize the effort to come into the Capitol on January 6th. And then we got to make sure that we have our laws in place so that we can actually go after these folks. Michigan has some of the best laws in the country, anti-terrorism laws and anti-militia laws. Then we got to make sure we have the resources so that our law enforcement officers can research these cases, investigate these cases, and then ultimately end in prosecuting these cases. So those are all the kinds of things that we were talking about this past week in the hearing. And Michigan is honestly at ground zero for this.
I know Attorney General Dana Nessel told the subcommittee, her department needs more funding, simple as that. I mean, she even cited she actually plans on using undergraduates in cybersecurity at Ferris State to help track the number of threats, obviously because there is a lack of resources. So what do? You may have the laws in place, but if you don't have the resources to track those people down, you're in trouble.
Yeah, it actually reminds me of what it was like in the federal government and in the state governments right after 9/11. We had been attacked. We had this hugely deadly and symbolic attack that happened, and we realized that we just weren't resourced. We weren't thinking about these foreign terrorist organizations. We didn't have analysts. We didn't have intel sharing. We didn't have money, focused on the target. And so I think we're going through a smaller version of that with domestic terrorism. And it caught a lot of people's attention when Attorney General Nessel said that she's using undergrads instead of getting the intel sharing from the federal government. As a former CIA officer, that certainly got my attention. And that's on us to provide resources so she can do the work.
So what are the odds? Are we going to get those federal dollars that we need?
I think so. I mean, this is a priority for lots and lots of folks in Washington, particularly in the administration. We've already seen the Department of Homeland Security say, hey, we're going to put $70 million towards, preventing tension and attacks and violence before they happen through community grants to try and stop the problem before it ends up in the headlines. So I don't think we're pushing on a closed door when it comes to this administration. But in Congress, we need to make sure that we're spending the right resources and spending them in the right way. So that's part of our oversight responsibility.
So, Representative, let's say we do get that funding issue solved. Do you still have communications? And that is an issue I know I've seen as a reporter from different jurisdictions communicating to different places. Sometimes that information is not shared. We saw that in the situation, obviously, in Lansing and the state capitol. So we've got to fix that. But then when you attack communication, you start to possibly step on civil rights and other concerns. So what do you do with that?
Yeah, we saw, before January 6th, the social media companies weren't even enforcing their own rules and regulations around what could be on social media. Then January 6th happened, and then they swung the pendulum the other way, and they started shutting down thousands upon thousands of accounts, some probably legitimately, others I don't think so. And for me, it's just an easy thing. Freedom of speech is a just revered part of our country. But your freedom of speech ends when you threaten or incite violence. That's a red line in law, in our lives. And so for me, if someone's angry with their government, they're allowed to be angry with their government. If they don't like other people down the street, they're allowed to do that based on freedom of speech. The minute they threaten violence, that ends, and it's a law enforcement issue. So that's how I think the social media companies should look at it, and everybody else who's trying to figure out how we, go after misinformation and disinformation without trampling on free speech.
Now, this past week, Republicans in Michigan joined the push for more voting restrictions that are underway. We've seen in other states. Part of their statement was they were committed to making it easier to vote, harder to cheat. So what is your reaction this morning to that and Democrats' efforts to combat it on Capitol Hill?
Well, look, I think a lot of those laws were cut and paste from other states that are trying to do the same thing. I don't think there was a ton of original ideas in there. And I think in most cases, if you look at those proposed laws, it does make it harder for people to vote. And that's in the face of really the boogeyman of false stories around voter fraud. And I think if you're pushing to make it harder to vote because you want a better chance at winning, you have lost your way. You've lost your way, right? Democracy is about everyone who deserves and has a right to vote gets to vote. And we shouldn't make it harder for citizens to access that right. If you're doing that, I guess I would just ask my colleagues in Lansing to please take a hard look at what you're trying to do and make sure it stands up to the values that our founding fathers would have wanted us to live up to.
I wish that we didn't have to talk about this next topic, but it is a must in the wake of the recent mass shootings like the one earlier this week in Boulder, Colorado. Gun safety legislation, it's again being discussed on the Hill. What do you think should be done? And then with that, do you actually think it could be done? There's a difference on what should and can be done.
Sure. So actually, just coincidentally, in the past 2 weeks, we have passed through the House of Representatives two common sense gun legislation pieces. One is just universal background checks. All it says is if the same background check you go through if you buy a gun at Dunham's is the same background check you should go through if you buy on the internet or through a gun show. It just makes it systematic. And then the second bill was closing what's called the South Carolina loophole, where that loophole says if your background check takes more than 3 days, you automatically get to buy a gun without waiting for that background check to complete. So we passed those two things. I voted for both of those two things, and they're now being taken up in the Senate. And we'll have to see. You're right that there's very few topics that are as controversial in the Senate as gun-related issues. My hope is that we just have an up or down vote, right? Don't hold off putting people on the record on this. If you want to vote it down and you think a basic background check is so onerous on the internet, then you should vote that way and let your constituents make the decision whether they support that. So I hope that we're going to see those up or down votes in the next couple of weeks in Congress based on what happened.
And lastly, from one controversial topic to the next, immigration. Obviously, that's been in the news a lot. Obviously, in the past week, the House passed the Dreamers bill before. Now, that doesn't address the migrants at the U.S.-Mexico border. We're seeing that video coming in. There's criticism of the Biden administration. Is there hope for a comprehensive immigration reform?
Yeah, I mean, this is the big thing is I've never seen an issue so politicized as immigration. It's been weaponized and used for as a political football when really we just need a change to the system. We just need people to be able to come here, legally work. We need our businesses to be able to get immigrant labor that's legal and safe and responsible. So we don't have just tons and tons of people feeling like they need to cross our border illegally in order to just come and work here. We need that labor in most cases. So we do need reform. And some of the proposals I've seen don't meet my definition of reform. They give people a pathway to citizenship, which in many cases I support, but they don't actually reform and change the system. And until I see real reform and comprehensive reform, as you're noting, I'm not going to be able to support something because we're just going to be back here in 5 or 10 years with the same problem. And both parties have explaining to do on that score.
Representative Slotkin, it's always appreciated your time and your expertise on these topics. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
We hope you have a good rest of your weekend, and there is much more to come here on Flashpoint.
When you think of DraftKings, you might think sports, but there's so much more. DraftKings used their top-of-the-line technology to create a mobile casino app for a new way to get skin in the game and play for real cash prizes, offering the games you love, including blackjack, roulette, slots, and more. New casino players can get a 100% bonus on their first deposit, up to $1,500, plus $10 in free casino credits. Don't wait! Download the DraftKings Casino app now and make it rain.
We all got hit hard in 2020. Beaumont's been fighting the pandemic with our community since Michigan's first COVID patients were diagnosed. It takes all of us. We're proud to have cared for the most COVID patients in the state. And now we're leading the fight to end the pandemic with our new vaccination clinics. With every person we vaccinate, our community grows stronger. But we can only do it together. Beat the pandemic with Beaumont.
Visit GollingBloomfield.com and lease or buy your next vehicle online. Only at Golling Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram in Bloomfield Hills. During the Jeep Celebration event, take off in a 2021 Jeep Grand Cherokee Laredo 4x4, now only $249 a month employee, $289 friends and family. Or lease the 2021 Jeep Grand Cherokee Limited 4x4 for just $329 a month employee, $369 friends and family. You search, you request, we deliver to your home or office. Shop GollingBloomfield.com. Golling Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram in Bloomfield Hills.
It has been a while since we've caught up with members of Detroit City Council, and there is a lot to catch up on. So let's dig into it with Council Member at Large Janae Ayers, Council Member from the 1st District, James Tate, and from the 6th District, Councilwoman Raquel Castaneda Lopez. So good morning, everyone. We appreciate your time, and I want to start really with some positive news that we did here this week. Dan Gilbert's announcement that he and his wife will invest $500 million in Detroit neighborhoods over the next 10 years, as well as help 20,000 families with unpaid property taxes. Councilwoman Ayers, while that is a huge help, of course, if you had a list of priorities in terms of neighborhoods or exact changes you want to see, what would that list look like? What do you want to see happen?
Well, I think the first component to even a neighborhood is discussing whether or not you have people that are living in said neighborhood. And so we know that property tax and the inability to pay them is a driving factor on how many people are actually going to be residing there. So I think this is a valiant effort, and I thank Dan and his wife for just their willingness to step out and help somebody else. So it does fit in my list of priorities, but I just want to see how this all plays out. I know that they've partnered on a few other things, and they put in place the requirement for being enrolled in pay as you stay. So we'll see how this works out, but I think it's a step in the right direction.
Anyone have any other priorities they want to see? Sometimes we use the word neighborhoods and it's pretty big. I would like to see something specific that's on your list. Mr.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the main thing, quite honestly, is to see what's already being contemplated. I have not yet seen any details. We heard the press conference, and it sounds very good. It's very uplifting, but as a member of the elected body for the city of Detroit, it's imperative for us to make sure that we identify all those details. And again, it sounds great, but the other piece is how do we connect people to those particular resources? And that's one of those challenges that we have on a regular basis within the city of Detroit. And I can't imagine that there won't be the same situation here. So again, it's about the details. We of course want to see how these dollars can affect the tax debt that many Detroiters have no ability to pay. But we also have to look down the road. Right now, we have a moratorium on water shutoffs. We've got to figure that out. We've got to figure out education. We've got a lot of issues that we have to address within the city of Detroit. Even when we say that we're on the upswing right now, that doesn't mean that we don't have a number of holes that we still have to patch. And I'm looking, again, forward to the details and see what type of what's in the details. I'll just leave it at that.
And that leads me to my next question, because while we're talking about Detroit neighborhoods in need of help, Detroit's businesses are also in need of assistance as they've been dealing with this pandemic this past year. What are the best ways to reopen the economy? And we'll send it over to you, Councilwoman Castaneda Lopez.
Yeah, thank you for that question. For me, small businesses have always been at the center of our local economy. We know it's our small mom and pop grocery stores or restaurants that employ a much higher percentage of local people and that really contribute the most directly to our local economy. And so for me, it's trying to think of how can we get forgivable loans without all the burdensome paperwork directly to small businesses? How can we get more forgivable grants to go directly to these small businesses to make sure that they can continue to thrive, because they really have been sustaining and keeping some of our neighborhoods afloat for decades, and the pandemic hit them the hardest. And so I think sometimes the focus is on attracting a lot of these larger corporations that may be able to hire a lot of folks at one time, but it really is the small businesses that are the fabric of our community that make up and have the biggest impact on our local economies. And so I'm looking for folks. Would love to see Dan do some forgivable grants to our small business community. Would love to see the federal government and the state roll out some more forgivable loans for folks and for all the entrepreneurs that really have kept the city going during hard times.
And what about, and I'll send this to really anyone who wants to address this, we've got $880 million in COVID relief money. Is there a priority that we should put a list on in terms of how we spend those dollars in the city of Detroit?
I have a list.
I know, right?
I got a list.
I try to let the budget.
Everyone wants to spend that 880.
Yeah, I think the most important, at least to me, I think we all have really cool ideas about what we'd like to see and how we'd like to make sure that it's appropriated. But I think the most important part is to make sure that our state legislators are working together so that we can even have the money released to us in the proper amount of time. We know we still have federal dollars that have not been released to the city of Detroit. Mm-hmm. So that's the number one concern for me. Before I bring out my laundry list of things I want to see, I really want to see it in our coffers first.
Right. And Councilman Tate, you had some ideas yourself?
It comes down to just making sure that we get those dollars coming into the city first, and then understanding what are the parameters, what are the hoops that we have to jump through, even as a municipality, and then coming up with the rules to determine that we stick with that, because having that large amount of money can be challenging for us, because we have to make sure that it's accountable, that we're accountable, that every dollar is that we're transparent in how we spend each and every one of those dollars. So again, while we want to talk about, it's always great to talk about these projects that we're looking at. As a legislator, for me, the details are what counts. How do we go about spending these money? Do we have any requirements that we're going to have to endure as a result of it? So that's first where my mind is, because we haven't received those dollars yet. Let's first find out what's required. And then those mega lists that we have, and I said mega, the mega lists that we have, we're going to make sure that they are addressed, and making sure that number one are the services that we have to address.
Well, I've got you there, Councilman Tate. I want to bring in the topic of marijuana licensing in the city and the priority to include legacy Detroiters. Where are we in that process?
Yeah, I was going to talk about some of those dollars. Hopefully can go towards legacy Detroiters getting them in, but I don't know about the details. So that's why I didn't want to put that on my list.
Okay.
But in terms of legacy Detroiters, we've had well over 700, I think the number now may be close to 800 to 900 members of the city, residents of the city of Detroit who've applied for legacy Detroit status. We're right on the cusp of the licensing applications beginning to be accepted on April 1st. A lot of appetite. Right now, what we're trying to do is make sure that what we are put in place on a piece of paper is executed properly in the way our process is. Again, I go back to making sure transparency. The city council has just received the standards of review from the administration to determine how they're going to award these licenses. We're going through that with a fine-tooth comb. I believe it's actually before the Public Health and Safety Committee this upcoming Monday. And so there's going to be I'm sure some conversation about that, but I'm excited about the opportunity of Detroiters actually having a chance to not just be able to own a business and then end up getting swapped out, but because of the way that we built this ordinance, this provides an opportunity for generational wealth for legacy Detroiters, folks who lived in the city of Detroit have been frozen out of this industry, and many others for so many years. So we're looking at right the wrong. The city of Detroit has been disproportionately impacted by marijuana arrests, so it made no sense at all for us not to make sure that Detroiters have the best opportunity in Detroit to succeed in this particular industry, and that's what we're planning to do.
I want to bring in Councilwoman Castaneda Lopez on this, the riverfront, and it's a complicated topic, so I'm going to try to make it really, I guess, as basic as we can for folks to understand. There's confusion, there's a little bit of outcry from the public in terms of the viewpoint on the news that broke last week that some proposal was actually approved that involved privatizing the Port of Detroit. Is this a good move? Is this a done deal? Where do things stand?
Yeah, in real simple terms, the deal that the Port Authority is in is horrible. It's completely lopsided. And so definitely want to do what we can to help them get out of that deal. At the same time, I do not support the current deal on the table because it would privatize the port. And so I'm a big believer in that we need to maintain access to the riverfront public. We need to hold on to our port as a public asset. And this is really about, protecting and preserving the history of that port with the historic Bablo Island building, which was built by designed by Albert Kahn. And so it's around the deal, I think, is really a question of how do we protect our public assets? What other routes can we pursue as it relates to protecting the port and helping them to get out of this really horrible agreement with the maroon companies to ensure that that port continues to be in the city's possession for generations to come. And so right now, I think what's being presented is a quick fix, a short-term solution that's not really in the long-term best interest. And so we hope to have a public meeting about it very soon. We just met with the Port Authority this morning, just got a copy of all of those documents that we hope to share very soon with folks. So stay tuned for more conversations.
So to clarify, this is not a done deal. There still is time for the public to share their concerns.
Good question. Yes, it is not a done deal yet. It has to come before City Council, whether we want to give up our interest in the property or not. I'm really interested in pursuing the options of potentially eminent domain, or there's triggering a clause in the agreement if we could enter a new agreement with the Ambassador Ports Company. So yes, more to come, more public engagement for sure.
And real quickly, as we wrap up, Councilwoman Ayers, we just got to talk real quick about vaccines. What a response at Ford Field, but at the same time, we still have to get that message out. We do need more people to say okay to those shots in arms if we want to get back to a quote normal life. What are your thoughts?
Oh, absolutely. Just at the height of the pandemic, I had an opportunity to volunteer at the testing site. We were able to secure $10,000 donations when thermometers were, few and far between to come across. And at this point, we need to get as much information out to the public about what it is. If you've already gotten vaccinated, share your story, because I think there's just an overarching fear factor that people have of the unknown. And as long as it's out here, we've got Ford Field, we still have TCF Center. I'm doing my part. I know my colleagues are doing their part to ensure people that we have space, we have opportunity, and we actually are in a better space than most other places throughout the country with our ability to access the vaccines. And so I think as long as we continue to educate and we empower people with the information, we'll be on the right track. I just hope that everybody still realizes no matter if you have the vaccine or not, put your mask on still, wash your hands still, keep socially distanced, and I think we'll be okay.
All right, we thank you very much for your time. It's always good to hear from Detroit City Council because there is so much going on. I want to thank you all for your time this Sunday morning, and of course we'll be following up on a variety of those topics that we did touch base on. All right, we will be back to wrap up in a moment.
The NHL on Local 4 is brought to you in part by FanDuel Sportsbook.
It's time to go all in because every game matters.
Out in front, score!
The playoff push is on. Rangers, Capitals. Sunday on NBC.
Local 4's coverage of the NHL on NBC is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. More ways to win.
For 81 years, we've been here for Michigan. From day one to year 100. Committed to the communities we call home. Because we're here for it all and always will be. Confidence comes with every card. We're here for you. With more ways to access the care you need from the doctors you trust. We're here for it all and always will be. Confidence comes with every card.
Let's raise a glass to sunny days, to moving the dining room outside, and to still making it nice, even if it's just us.
Cheers.
Love you guys.
Can I say goodbye?
Bring home the memories this Easter with Honey Baked Ham, only from the Honey Baked Ham Company.
Oh, your nose is cold.
Winter's almost over, and we're clearing out our unused inventory. For a limited time, Thornton & Grooms is offering a free furnace with the purchase of an air conditioner. Call now to book a free quote. Thornton & Grooms. We're in tune with your comfort.
Local 4 defender Karen Drew, uncovering the stories that affect you, fighting for change, getting results. She revealed a human trafficking survivor's push for a big change in the law.
I was charged with prostitution when I had escaped.
The next day, results. Then, dangerous violations exposed.
And some riverfront properties are ignoring the city's demand to make corrections.
Again, results. Karen Drew, Sean Lay, the Local 4 Defenders.
And thank you for joining us for Flashpoint. Devin will be back next week. Meet the Press is next. Have a great Sunday and go Blue.